Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. If you have been following my E30 videos, you know the car has been sitting for some time now and I've been dying to get it back on the road. One of the things I was working on was a steering rack swap, and I am in the middle of that. Unfortunately, it did turn into a bit of a nightmare. So let me show you how that's going. So I got through most of the process. I got the old steering rack completely off of the car. I managed to modify the steering knuckle with the Garagistics kit to make sure it fit on the new E36 rack, and everything went downhill as soon as I got to install the new rack back into place. Alright, so let's take a quick look at the steering rack so that you can see what I have been dealing with. Over here we have, of course, E30, the original rack that was installed on the car, and we also have the new one that I had ordered for the swap. So let me get closer here so that you can see some of the differences between the new rack and the original and understand why it is that I won't be using these in the end. One of the first things you'll notice here is that there are no labels or part numbers, serial numbers, or anything like that here. This is as generic as they come. You can see the original rack has the label with the part number and everything else. Now that should have been the first signs of trouble, but I didn't really think anything of it at the time. So the next thing I noticed, and this is when everything started going downhill, is that the new rack didn't have this little notch you see here on the ends on both sides. So there was no place or way to install the locking washer, which is there for making sure that your inner tie rods don't come loose as you're driving. You know, that can be catastrophic to say the least. So I had already gone through modifying the steering knuckle and all that, so I wasn't about to let something as small as this stop the progress. So I went ahead and cut the notches with my Dremel, and everything came out very nice, and I was able to use the locking washer. As you see here, it's already installed with the tie rod and everything else, so no biggie there. And I kept on going. Now, it wasn't until I was ready to install the new rack back onto the car when shit really hit the fan. And you can see here, I'm struggling to get the rack in place, and I quickly realized there was no way I was gonna be able to get this installed. And the main reason for that, as you will see here, is that the hard lines, these hard power steering lines that come already pre-installed on the rack, come off way too far from the rack out, especially this one that you can see here. And this essentially hits against the subframe, not letting me to push the rack far enough into place for me to bolt the rack back on. So there was nothing I can do, and this piece right here is the one that hits the subframe, so it's not like I can bend it a little bit or anything like that. I mean, this is a hard line that's not going anywhere. You can see the differences between the OEM rack here, how the lines are routed much closer to the rack and they don't come out too far, and how this, you know, generic made who knows where rack was done completely wrong. So my first thought was to cut this line, you know, modify it and get it closer to the rack so that I could get the clearance I needed. But to my surprise, the fitting on this hard line is not a standard double or bubble flare where I could just rent a tool and finish it myself. I believe this is called a GM fuel line, which is quite rare, and the only tools I saw for, you know, getting this done were like $400 online. And as I kept thinking about it more and more, I realized that I just didn't want to go through with it with this generic rack anymore. So I went ahead and got myself another rack to finish the swap. And as you'll see here, this is quality stuff, OEM, from FCP Euro with a lifetime warranty. This is a Bosch ZF rack, so I have no concerns with fitment or anything like that. The hard lines are very closely routed, just like the original one. I have enough clearance here and everything else, and overall the rack looks brand new. So I'm very happy, although I did spend quite a bit more money on this. I do have now the peace of mind that I'm installing quality parts back on my car. I also went ahead and ordered new E36 tie rods, the complete assembly, because I figured I'm going all out. I might as well. I was using the original E30 tie rods on the other rack. I'm gonna leave those there, probably sell it to someone who needs it, and just use the new ones for the job. And knowing that I still had one of the hardest steps on the swap to do once I get the new rack installed, which is to modify the existing high pressure power steering lines to fit the new rack, I figure I don't want to deal with more issues, so I went ahead and splurged myself and bought a very nice kit from Chase Base that includes all new power steering lines as well as the reservoir, and these are AN fittings, flexible lines, no need to be messing around with hard lines or bending or anything like that. I'm very much looking forward to installing this kit. So stay tuned for that full video on the swap, as well as much more content coming on the E30 and the STI if you're following that. Hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of it. And as usual, hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave your comments below and I will see you all on the next one.